Imagine a CEO, right, just standing in this massive glass-walled boardroom.
Oh yeah, we've all seen that type of setup.
Totally. And they have the most advanced AI data dashboards in the world just glowing on the screens behind them. I mean, they have perfect real-time visibility into every single supply chain metric.
Every customer sentiment score, too.
Yeah, every fractional dip in quarterly revenue, it is all right there. Yet with all of that pristine information, they still manage to drive their billion-dollar company straight off a cliff.
Right, because you cannot fix a human panic attack in the spreadsheet.
Exactly. Which brings up this fascinating paradox in how we treat business and personal development. Usually when we talk about a diagnosis, whether that's for a medical issue or a failing organization, there's this expectation of absolute precision.
Like engineering, essentially.
Right, exactly like engineering.
Yeah.
You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, there it is, broken.
We crave that binary simplicity. We really
We
do.
do.
I mean, we want to be able to point to a negative number in red ink on a quarterly report and say, aha, there's the problem, let's just patch it.
But the reality of actual sustainable transformation is that the X-ray machine is often broken, or at least it's not designed to measure what's actually failing.
Right.
I mean, how do you take a blood test for a toxic corporate culture? How do you X-ray a CEO's complete lack of self-awareness?
You can't.
No, you are stepping into a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters.
Yeah.
And navigating those waters requires a completely different architectural approach to intelligence and leadership.
Which is exactly the mission for today's deep dive. Today, we are exploring a profoundly unique conceptual document from the Spectrix Metaphysical Institute and its partner organization, WaveRen LLC.
Two very distinct organizations.
Very distinct. And we are unpacking how these two organizations are utilizing a classical approach to mythology, yes, literally mythology, to model, guide, and literally scale human and organizational transformation.
And we should probably clarify immediately what we mean by mythology in this context, because they are not building a comic book universe here.
Oh, no, not at all.
They aren't inventing corporate mascots to print on break room coffee mugs or anything like that.
Far from it. They are utilizing three distinct archetypes named Doxy, Christian, and Mentor. And to you, the listener, I want to say this directly. Whether you are attempting to improve your own daily decision-making or you are at the helm of a massive, sprawling enterprise, this deep dive offers a totally unique framework.
A completely different way of looking at things.
It really is. It's not about mascots. It's about a living architecture of intelligence. Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the foundational premise here. Where do we even begin with a living architecture?
Well, we begin by looking at the overarching theme of this entire ecosystem. What Spectrix and WaveRen have built is a unified growth model. And they did this by identifying three completely different yet entirely interdependent forms of intelligence. You have human intelligence, organizational intelligence, and transcendent intelligence.
So three distinct pillars.
Exactly. And the brilliance of this document is how it maps these abstract intelligences onto three archetypal figures to demonstrate how they must actually merge to create coherence.
Because isolated intelligence is a liability.
A massive liability.
I mean, you can have a brilliant, highly self-aware human navigating a terrible, archaic system, and they will fail.
Right.
Or you can have a perfect, frictionless system run by a misguided, ego-driven human, and they will also fail.
The ecosystem only thrives when the parts communicate.
Mm-hmm.
But to really understand that communication, we have to start at the foundational unit of all organizations.
Right.
Because before we can look at massive corporate systems, we have to look at the individual mind.
Which logically introduces us to the very first archetype in this mythology, Doxy.
All right, Doxy. He is the architect of internal transformation. If you are looking at the materials from the Spectrix Metaphysical Institute, Doxy is the face of the operation.
The main guy.
Yeah, on the surface, he presents as a classic founder figure. The teacher, the metaphysician, the head researcher. But the document is explicit that this is merely the surface. Doxy is a living archetype of personal transformation.
He literally represents human intelligence itself.
He does.
And his operating domain is entirely contained within the Spectrix Metaphysical Institute. Reading through his core philosophy, the phrase that kept jumping out to me over and over is, behavior follows awareness.
That is the anchor of Doxy's entire domain. Behavior follows awareness. It sounds simple, but it completely subverts the traditional executive coaching model.
It really does, because traditional coaching is almost always behavioral first, isn't it?
Almost entirely.
It's highly prescriptive. It's like, wake up at 5 a.m., execute these 10 specific habits, optimize your calendar with this specific app, and then you will become a highly effective leader.
It's a complete outside-in approach.
Right. Outside in.
And that outside-in approach is heavily dependent on compliance. You are complying with a coach's system, but Doc C's objective is never dependence on a system. It is pure, unadulterated self-awareness.
So he doesn't want you just copying his routine.
Not at all. He is far less interested in fixing your immediate surface-level behavioral problems, and vastly more interested in helping you discover the underlying architecture meet those problems.
And the questions he asks reflect that perfectly. He isn't walking into a room and asking, hey, what are your Q3 deliverables?
Right.
He is asking, who are you becoming?
Which is such a disruptive question to ask a high-performing executive.
Yeah.
Who are you becoming as a byproduct of how you are working?
Yeah, that stops you in your tracks. He also asks, what unseen patterns are shaping your life? And how do thought, emotion, body, and purpose actually come into coherence?
Exactly. This isn't spreadsheet optimization.
No, this is a deeply internal, almost surgical exploration of the self.
But it's vital to understand that Spectrix doesn't just rely on abstract philosophical questioning. They aren't just sitting around pondering.
Right, they have actual tools.
To achieve that level of internal coherence, they have built a really robust arsenal of frameworks. They integrate evidence-informed wellness practices, mind-body integration, guided visualization.
Meditation, breath work, neuro-linguistic programming.
All of it.
And this is where I want to slow down and really dig into the mechanics, because the document lists several proprietary frameworks that, honestly, on the surface, they sound incredibly dense.
They do have some heavy terminology.
Yeah, I mean, we have the Spectrix Subtle Energy Cube, Consciously Applied Metaphysical Principles, Business Nucleotide Architecture, ViBRI, the Spectrix Personal Blueprint Assessment, and the Empty, Align, Direct Flow Methodology.
That is quite a list of trademark terms.
It is, and if I'm a pragmatic nuts and bolts listener, my eyes might be glazing over a bit at terms like Subtle Energy Cube.
Totally understandable.
So let's demystify these. Let's take the Empty, Align, Direct Flow methodology. Walk me through a literal day in the life of a leader using this. How does this actually work in real-world practice?
Okay, let's contextualize it with a high-stakes scenario. Just imagine a CEO is walking into a 9 a.m. board meeting.
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
10 minutes before the meeting, they receive an email that a major multi-million-dollar product launch is delayed by 6 months due to a catastrophic supply chain failure.
Oh, man. Panic sets in instantly. The amygdala just hijacks the brain.
The heart rate spikes, the palms sweat.
Yeah.
In a traditional untrained state, that CEO walks into the boardroom radiating anxiety. They snap at their leadership team. They make rash, defensive decisions just to save face.
And that creates a cascading wave of internal organizational trauma.
Exactly. Their behavior in that moment is dictating their reality.
But if they're utilizing Doc C's Empty, Align, Direct Flow methodology, what changes?
They interrupt that biological and psychological cascade.
Yeah.
Step 1 is empty.
Empty. So what does that physically look like?
Before stepping into that room, they use a specific cognitive or breathwork technique to literally empty the immediate emotional static.
So they just stop for a second.
Yes. From a neurobiological standpoint, they are downregulating their nervous system. They are actively clearing the workspace of the mind.
They're stopping the amygdala from hijacking the prefrontal cortex.
Precisely. Once that emotional static is cleared out, they move to step 2, which is align.
Align with what, though?
They actively realign with their core purpose and the overarching mission of the company. They remind themselves, my goal today is not to punish the messenger. My goal is to solve the logistical bottleneck and protect the integrity of the brand.
Oh, wow. So they've neutralized the panic, and they've actually remembered what their job is in that room. What's next?
Step 3 is direct. Now that they are aligned, they direct their cognitive focus solely on the variables they can actually control.
They aren't dwelling on the past failure anymore.
Right. They are directing their energy toward the immediate triage required right there in the boardroom.
Okay, so empty, align, direct. And the last one is flow.
Finally, step 4 is flow. They step into the room and execute the necessary actions with fluid, unobstructed coherence.
So they aren't yelling or blaming?
No. They deliver the bad news calmly, they assign investigative tasks without malice, and they maintain the trust of their board.
Empty the panic, align with the purpose, direct the focus, flow into action. That actually takes a very metaphysical concept and turns it into a highly practical cognitive firewall.
It does. And the beauty of that framework is that it literally proves Doxey's thesis. Behavior follows awareness.
Because the CEO became aware of their own physiological panic, they could actually change their behavior.
Exactly.
Let's look at another one of these frameworks because I find these fascinating. The source text mentions something called business nucleotide architecture.
Ah, yeah.
Now that sounds like a biotech firm, right? Not a leadership coaching framework. What is the mechanism there?
It's a brilliant functional metaphor, actually. Think about what a nucleotide is in basic biology.
It is the basic building block of DNA and RNA. It carries genetic information.
Right. So in Doxey's framework, business nucleotide architecture is the process of mapping the fundamental, quote-unquote, genetic building blocks of a leader's decision-making process.
Well, you see where this is going. So if biological DNA has base pairs that must align to build healthy proteins,
Yes.
a business leader has core values, biases, and historical traumas that must align to build a healthy organizational culture.
That's the exact translation. Let's say a leader has a mutated nucleotide.
A mutated nucleotide, like
Say a deeply ingrained subconscious fear of financial scarcity stemming from their childhood.
oh, I see.
That subtle energetic mutation will actually replicate itself throughout the entire company. The leader will subconsciously underinvest in innovation.
They will micromanage expense reports, probably.
Definitely. And they will create a pervasive culture of anxiety. Doxey's architecture helps the leader isolate that specific foundational building block, examine it, and reconstruct it.
You are essentially reverse engineering the founder psychology before it infects the entire company.
That is exactly what you're doing.
Which leads us to the most woo-woo sounding term on the list, the Spectrix subtle energy cube.
I know, the name is a bit out there for some people.
It is. I hear subtle energy and I immediately think of crystals and incense, you know? Break that down for a secular, highly business-minded audience.
I promise you, it is entirely grounded in practical psychology and interpersonal neurobiology. We all inherently understand that spaces and people have energy.
Sure.
You can walk into a room where two people just had a screaming match, and even if they are completely silent when you enter, you can feel the tension.
Oh yeah, the air is thick.
The air is thick. What you're actually picking up on are micro-expressions, lingering cortisol in the room, stiff body language, and subtle vocal tonality.
So it's not magic, it's just biology.
Right. The subtle energy cube is just a visualization tool for leaders to systematically map and adjust that invisible environment.
How do they use a cube to do that?
It asks the leader to visualize their personal space, or their team's space, as a multidimensional cube. Are the physical, emotional, mental, and purposeful energies in this space expanding and interacting healthily, or is one dimension just crushing the others?
Oh, I see. So if a team is completely exhausted and burned out, their physical energy dimension is depleted.
Yes.
But the leader is demanding high-level strategic innovation, which is mental energy. The cube is misshapen. It's basically collapsing on itself.
Exactly. And if you don't have a framework to identify that collapse, you just assume your team is incompetent or lazy.
When really they're just out of balance.
The subtle energy cube simply gives a vocabulary to the invisible dynamics of human interaction.
So Doxey is essentially training you to become the lead scientist of your own consciousness. You are in the lab, observing your own reactions, your own energy, your own patterns.
You're becoming the objective observer of your own programming.
I love that. But I have to push back here for a second, because let's play this out realistically.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's say I'm that CEO. I have mastered Doxey's inner coherence. I use the empty, align, direct, flow methodology perfectly every single day. My subtle energy cube is perfectly balanced. I am totally zen.
Sounds like a pretty great place to be.
It is, internally. But what if my company's proprietary software is entirely obsolete? What if our customer acquisition cost has just tripled and my actual physical supply chain is broken beyond repair?
Right.
All the inner peace in the world just makes me a very calm, highly coherent failure. The breathwork isn't putting boxes on the delivery trucks? Does the system have a massive blind spot?
That is the exact friction point, and it is the primary reason why Spectrix cannot exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You have perfectly articulated the limitation of pure human intelligence.
It can't do everything.
No. Doxey can build a sturdy, completely unsinkable captain. But if the ship's radar is fundamentally flawed, if the data the captain is receiving from the external world is just wrong, the ship will still crash into the iceberg.
A deeply self-aware captain steering a blind ship.
which necessitates a massive structural shift in our perspective. We have to move from DocC's internal landscape to the external systemic landscape. And this is how the document logically introduces us to the second archetype in this mythology. Christian, the biological and conceptual brother to DocC. And if DocC represents human intelligence, Christian is the living embodiment of organizational intelligence.
And he operates within the partner organization, WaveRen LLC.
Correct.
And the contrast between these two brothers is jarring in the best way possible, because if DocC looks entirely inward at the individual, Christian looks entirely outward at the organizational landscape.
Christian is not trying to transform the individual. He doesn't care about your subtle energy or your emotional blockages. That is simply not his domain.
He's not doing breathwork with you.
No. Christian transforms the system, operating on the foundational belief that better systems improve behavior.
Which is the exact inverse of DocC. DocC says behavior follows awareness. Christian says behavior follows systems.
They are approaching human nature from totally opposite ends. Christian understands that you can have a highly motivated, incredibly well-intentioned employee.
Right.
But if you put them in a labyrinth of terrible software, broken communication channels, and contradictory KPIs, that employee will eventually behave like a frustrated, incompetent worker.
The system dictates the outcome.
The system always wins.
You can see this stark contrast in the questions Christian asks, too. Because while DocC is asking, who are you becoming? Christian is looking at an executive dashboard and asking, what does the data actually say?
He's asking, what are we even measuring? And what structural patterns are emerging from this measurement? And ultimately, what decisions become mathematically and strategically possible once we actually understand those patterns?
So WaveRen LLC lives in a universe of hard metrics. We are talking financial planning and analysis, business intelligence, operational analytics.
It is the cold, hard reality of the external world. Executive dashboards, organizational measurement, AI-enabled decision support.
But WaveRen doesn't just collect data, right? Because anyone can buy a software subscription and just hoard data.
Exactly. Christian's domain relies on a very specific, highly disciplined guiding methodology to make that data actually useful. It's called the Adaptive Response and Coherence Framework.
The WaveRen ARC.
The WaveRen ARC. And this framework is crucial because it directly addresses the disease of modern business, which is data hoarding.
Just piling up numbers.
Endless terabytes of information. But they lack the structural architecture to know what to actually do with it. The ARC framework is a strict four-phase progression designed to force action.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's walk the listener through that progression, because this is where the rubber meets the road for operational leaders.
Okay.
According to the document, ARC helps organizations move through 4 distinct phases: measurement, intelligence, learning, and action.
Let's apply this to a tangible business case study to see how the actual mechanics work. Let's say a software company does a massive 6-month product launch for a new app.
Okay, phase 1, transforming raw measurement into intelligence.
Right. Raw measurement is just observation without context. It is the raw data feed.
So just the numbers.
Yes. In our scenario, the raw measurement is downloads of the new app dropped by 42% in the second week, specifically among Gen Z users.
Okay, that is a measurement. It tells you what happened, but it doesn't tell you anything else.
So how do we transform that into intelligence?
That's the question.
Transforming measurement into intelligence requires correlation and analysis. You have to ask, why did the drop occur? You cross-reference the download data with user feedback, session duration times, and heat maps.
And what does that reveal?
The intelligence reveals that Gen Z users are abandoning the app at the registration screen because the UI requires too many manual data entry steps, whereas all the competitor apps offer a single-click biometric login.
Oh, wow. So the measurement is sales dropped, but the intelligence is our UI is causing immense friction for our target demographic.
What's fascinating here is how distinct those two things are. Measurement is the symptom, intelligence is the diagnosis.
Makes total sense.
Now we move to the most difficult phase of the ARC framework. Step 2, turning that intelligence into organizational learning.
Wait, why is that the most difficult phase? It seems pretty straightforward. You know the UI is bad, so you learn from it and fix it.
Because organizations are made of humans with egos. In most companies, intelligence dies before it ever becomes learning because of departmental silos and defensive posturing. The data analytics team might have the intelligence, but when they present it to the lead software engineer who spent 6 months designing that UI, the engineer gets defensive.
Naturally, they don't want to hear their baby is ugly.
Exactly. So they blame the marketing team for targeting the wrong audience.
So the intelligence exists, but the organization completely refuses to learn it.
Yes. Organizational learning only occurs when the system itself absorbs the intelligence without friction. The system adapts its fundamental understanding of reality.
So the engineering team have to actually accept the data.
Yes, they accept the data, they update their user design philosophy, and they institutionalize the knowledge that single-click logins are mandatory for this demographic.
The intelligence is no longer held by one frustrated data analyst. It is absorbed into the actual DNA of the company.
Exactly. And once the organization has truly learned the lesson, we reach step 3, the culmination of the ARC, converting that organizational learning into informed action.
Which means what in this case?
You deploy the engineering team to build the biometric login patch. You redesign the interface. You act. The ARC framework is a continuous self-correcting loop. Measurement to intelligence, intelligence to learning, learning to action.
And as you take that action, obviously you generate new measurements, and the cycle just begins again. It is a continuous engine of external coherence.
And this is where the genius of this entire conceptual document really reveals itself. When you look closely at what Doc C is doing with the empty, align, direct flow methodology, and what Christian is doing with the measurement, intelligence, learning, action framework.
Wait, I see it. They are essentially doing the exact same thing.
Yes, they really are.
Yeah.
You would think the metaphysician and the AI data analyst would be at each other's throats, ideologically speaking.
It really would.
But they're not competing forces at all. They're solving the exact same problem, alignment and coherence, but from opposite ends of the spectrum.
Doc C begins with consciousness, clearing internal static so the human can process reality. And Christian begins with systems, clearing external data static so the organization can process reality. Different starting points, exact same destination.
It's the ultimate brotherhood. Spectrix develops people. WaveRen develops organizations. Together, they create unified growth ecosystems. It's a complete picture of human and organizational potential.
And there is a hidden similarity in their approach that the source text points out, which I find incredibly humble and profound, honestly.
What's that?
Despite being the brilliant architects of these methodologies, neither Doc C nor Christian is presented as the hero of the story.
That is a crucial point. They are purely facilitators. They're teachers and guides. The document is explicit. The real hero of the narrative is always the client.
Right.
Whether that is an individual seeking profound personal transformation at Spectrix or a CEO trying to salvage a supply chain at WaveRen, the ultimate objective of both brothers is the empowerment of the client. They are building the stage, but the client is the one performing on it.
And I want to pause the analysis right here and ask you, the listener, to run a quick diagnostic on your own life or your own workplace based on this dynamic.
It's a very revealing exercise.
Think about it. Are you over-indexing on Doc C's domain? Do you have incredible internal awareness? You meditate daily. You've mapped your subtle energy cube. You know your core purpose, but you are completely ignoring Christian's external data.
We see that constantly in startup culture.
Oh, all the time.
You get the highly enlightened founder who builds an amazing, mindful culture, but the company burns through its venture capital in 6 months because they refuse to build rigid financial systems.
They had infinite human intelligence and zero organizational intelligence.
Precisely.
Or conversely, look at the other side. Are you over-indexing on Christian's side? Do you have all the AI-enabled dashboards, the pristine executive analytics, the WaveRen ARC framework perfectly deployed, but you lack Doc C's human coherence to actually execute on them?
Are your leaders too internally chaotic, too driven by ego and fear to read the dashboard without panicking and turning on each other?
Right. Merging these two forms of intelligence is the only path to vastly superior decision-making, because awareness dictates how you interpret data.
Exactly. If you are deeply insecure, you will interpret a slight dip in quarterly earnings as a catastrophic personal failure, and you will fire half your staff.
But if you have Doc C's inner coherence, you interpret that same data neutrally.
Yes. And then, Christian systems dictate how you act on that neutral awareness. You use the ARC framework to turn that observation into intelligent, measured action.
It is a brilliantly constructed loop, but as comprehensive as this unified ecosystem is, even if an organization perfectly balances human intelligence, through Spectrix and organizational intelligence through WaveRen,
There's still a vulnerability.
there is still a massive existential vulnerability hovering over the entire operation.
Vulnerability of time.
Time and mortality. I mean, what happens when the visionary founders retire? What happens when the charismatic CEO steps down?
Right.
This bridges us into the true strategic genius of what Spectrix and WaveRen are doing with this document. It explains why they utilize this classical approach to mythology, why they built these archetypes, rather than just relying on a founder's personal brand.
It's entirely about scaling wisdom. Modern leaders utilize archetypes to sustain an organizational mission across multiple generations because people inevitably leave.
They retire, they change industries, they pass away.
And furthermore, organizations change. Technology, especially the AI systems in Christian's domain, evolves at an unrecognizable speed.
So if the brand is just, John Smith's consulting firm, and the entire methodology is based on John Smith's brain,
What happens when John Smith is gone?
the magic evaporates, the
Yeah.
investors pull out.
Exactly. But principles like wisdom, service, curiosity, rigorous inquiry, and integrity, those are immortal.
So by building the methodology around the archetypes of Doxy and Christian, they have detached the value of the system from the ego of the founder.
It's like passing a torch in an ancient relay race. Today's Doxy does not have to be tomorrow's Doxy.
Because by making them archetypes, the title and the mission matter so much more than the individual occupying the seat.
The archetype becomes a vessel of service that future leaders can step into, inhabit, and eventually pass on.
It is a structural safeguard against the classic corporate downfall. I mean, we see this narrative play out constantly in the business world.
Constantly. An organization is built entirely around the cult of personality of a single charismatic founder.
And the moment that founder leaves, the organization loses its soul. The stock plummets, the culture rots from the inside, the top talent flees.
But the archetype ensures the mission survives the departure of the flesh and blood human being.
Stripping the ego away like that, setting up these roles as vessels of continuous service rather than pedestals for a specific guru, it is the perfect logical setup for the final and definitely the most mysterious archetype in this mythology.
The third figure in the ecosystem.
Mentor. Now, Mentor is an entirely different entity. Mentor is not a conceptual brother to Doxy and Christian. Mentor does not run Spectrix.
Mentor does not operate WaveRen either.
Mentor doesn't sell anything or doesn't offer consulting services, doesn't build AI dashboards, and doesn't even sit at the conference table with the brothers.
If you look at the visual hierarchy described in the document, Mentor isn't standing beside the brothers in the trenches. Mentor is positioned above them, watching, guiding, illuminating.
Mentor represents the third and final form of intelligence, transcendent intelligence. It is the fixed point in this entire ecosystem.
Transcendent intelligence is the pure embodiment of the fundamental principles both organizations aspire to follow. We are talking about deep curiosity, timeless wisdom, unshakable integrity, selfless service, humility, and the commitment to continuous, lifelong learning.
So Mentor is the structural reminder that wisdom is not something you own. It is something you receive and steward.
Yes. Mentor exists to remind the teachers that even they need teachers. Even the most brilliant, self-aware CEOs need guidance.
But Mentor's role goes deeper than just being a sounding board, doesn't it?
Much deeper. Mentor is the ultimate safeguard against the corruption of the other two intelligences.
So what does this all mean? I want to challenge that, though. I'm going to play the skeptic for a moment.
Go for it.
In an incredibly fast-paced business world, a world that is completely obsessed with Christian's hyper-efficient AI data analytics and Doxy's personal productivity output, isn't Mentor just a nice abstract decoration?
I hear that a lot.
Isn't transcendent intelligence just a fancy term for a corporate values poster hanging in the break room that no one actually reads while they're trying to hit their quarterly targets?
I completely understand the skepticism because we have all seen hollow corporate values. But based on the architecture of this framework, Mentor is actually the most functionally critical piece of the entire machine.
How so?
Mentor exists above the brothers, not because Mentor is above people, but because ideals must always remain above ego.
Ideals above ego. Let's explore the mechanism of that. How does that practically function?
Think of Mentor as the constitutional law of the ecosystem. You can have the executive branch, Doxy, driving the human action, and the legislative branch, Christian, building the systemic rule.
Okay, I follow the analogy.
But if they agree to do something that violates the fundamental rights of the ecosystem, the Constitution vetoes it. Without Mentor, without transcendent intelligence, knowledge becomes completely detached from wisdom.
And knowledge detached from wisdom is dangerous.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is catastrophic. Look at a historical parallel like the collapse of Enron.
Oh, wow. Enron.
Enron possessed staggering organizational intelligence, their financial systems, their market analytics, their trading algorithms. That was Christian's domain on steroids.
Right. They were brilliant in that regard.
And their leadership possessed immense human intelligence in terms of drive, focus, and cognitive output. Doc C's domain weaponized for profit.
So they were highly coherent, highly systematic, and incredibly efficient.
But they possessed zero transcendent intelligence. They lacked mentor. They lacked integrity, humility, and the overarching wisdom to ask, is what we are doing actually serving a higher ethical purpose, or are we just using brilliant tools to lie?
And because they lacked mentor, they used their incredible human and organizational intelligence to build a destructive, fraudulent empire that eventually vaporized.
Exactly.
That reframes the entire concept. Mentor isn't just a guardian star looking down kindly. Mentor is the true north on a compass.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You can have a sturdy, technologically advanced ship, that's Christian systems, and a calm, highly focused, physically optimized captain, that's Doc C's coherence. But if you don't have a North Star to navigate by, you are just sailing incredibly efficiently in the completely wrong direction.
It perfectly encapsulates the shared, ultimate mission of both Spectrix and WaveRen. They do not just want to help people make faster decisions or more profitable decisions.
It's want to help people make better decisions.
Yes. Better internal decisions regarding their own psychology, better external decisions regarding their organizational systems, but always, fundamentally, decisions guided by the light of wisdom.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of this incredible journey through their documentation. When we step back and look at this living architecture, we see a complete, holistic map of transformation.
A fully unified ecosystem.
Right. Doc C is in the trenches exploring the individual, utilizing tools like the empty, align, direct, flow methodology to clear out the biological and emotional static and build deep, unshakable inner coherence.
Then Christian is mapping the external environment, exploring the organization, utilizing the WaveRen ARC framework to turn raw, chaotic measurement into systemic coherence and informed action.
And Mentor floats above them both, the anchor of transcendent intelligence, ensuring that all of this cutting-edge human knowledge, all of this AI-driven data, and all of this newly unlocked personal power serves the light of wisdom rather than the darkness of ego.
It's a profound invitation.
It is the ultimate invitation for you, the listener. Whether you are currently focused on healing your own internal patterns or attempting to scale a multinational company, the invitation is to actively engage with all three of these intelligences.
It is about integration.
To become more aware of your inner state, to build systems that force you to ask better questions about your external state, and to subject all of those answers to a higher ethical standard.
As we wrap up this analysis, though, this architecture raises an important question, and I think it's one we have to leave the audience to wrestle with on their own.
Lay it on us. What is the lingering thought here?
Well, we are living in an era where Christian's domain, data, artificial intelligence, operational systems, predictive analytics, is expanding at literal light speed.
Yeah.
The sheer volume of organizational intelligence we have access to is staggering. We are basically drowning in dashboards.
The systems are scaling exponentially.
Exactly. But if our systems are scaling infinitely faster than our human intelligence, our Doc C abilities to actually sit with ourselves, manage our nervous systems, and cultivate self-awareness, and if, in the pursuit of all that speed, we are losing our connection to the transcendent intelligence that Mentor represents,
Right.
what kind of ecosystems are we actually building for the next generation?
That is chilling.
Will our wisdom be able to keep pace with our data? If AI gives us the power to act instantly on a global scale, but we lack the internal coherence and the transcendent ethics to guide that action, we're essentially handing a loaded weapon to a toddler.
Will our wisdom be able to keep pace with our data? That brings us full circle right back to the very beginning of our discussion, the X-ray machine.
Right, the diagnosis.
We can build the diagnostic technology to be as sharp, as fast, and as precise as humanly possible. But if we don't possess the wisdom to know how to heal the patient once we see the fracture, what is the point of taking the picture in the first place?
It all comes back to the foundation. Better awareness produces better decisions. The tools only matter if the hands holding them are steady.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive into the incredible conceptual architecture of Spectrix Metaphysical Institute and WaveRen LLC. Keep looking inward to build your coherence, keep measuring outward to build your systems, and, most importantly, keep looking up toward that overarching constitutional law of wisdom.
Well said.
Keep asking better questions, because that is the true, unending path to transforming your own life and your organization. Until next time.